whether or not you should be fundraising at all. That's kind of really our starting point today before we even think about how much you should be fundraising. My name is Shuo Chen. I'm a former entrepreneur, now investing in entrepreneurs and teaching entrepreneurship at Stanford and Berkeley. I'm also a board member at Decode, the largest entrepreneurship community co-hosted between Stanford and Berkeley students and alumni. And these are the secrets to closing your first fundraising round. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of numbers and talk about why the founder, you, and the founding team might need to raise money, let's talk a little bit more about when you should be thinking about fundraising. A lot of founders think that raising money is kind of like leveling up in a video game, and it's just the kind of natural next step that you take when you've beaten the last level. And after you're done building the prototype, then of course the next natural step is to get investors cash. But raising money isn't really just about collecting shiny coins to make your startup look cooler to everyone else around you. It's really about fueling growth where every dollar you put in actually ends up pumping more than a dollar out in return and ends up growing this engine that is your business. Here's a litmus test. Step 1. Do you have a scalable model? That is, for every dollar you pump into your business, does it currently spit out more than a dollar? Whether that's $1.50, $2, or even $10. If yes, congratulations. You are running this incredible money machine and the business that you're building is going well because the more cash you feed it, the faster it grows. And of course, the better your startup gets. And so your top constraint is capital. And that's when you know you should be fundraising. However, in this litmus test of figuring out whether or not you should be fundraising, if your answer to the question of do you get more than a dollar for every dollar you put into your business, if your answer is no, then your machine is currently kind of like a black hole. It's eating up money, kind of like I eat up snacks at least. So that's not really how you want to be thinking about your business. And of course, not what investors want to hear either. What you really need is a stronger core business model. And this is not really a problem that can be solved by just raising more external capital. So we'll talk more about that in a second. But in this litmus test, there's also step 2. Step 2 around whether or not you should be fundraising is thinking about, does every single dollar that you're raising now have a very specific use case? Very specific is like not a generic statement like we'll make everything faster, bigger, better with more features and offering it to more customers. I really don't mean it that way. I really mean a very specific thing like we have signed a few customers now and we need to hire more engineers to deliver on the specific products and features that our customers are requesting. That is a very specific need. And every single dollar here should be allocated towards something that is highly critical. And we're really talking about the core of building your product. What is a good example of building the core of your product, you might be asking? Well, it really does depend on the product space that you're in, of course. But in a general setting, core product is if you need a certain number of man hours where you're either onboarding engineers, product people, or even possibly salespeople. And these people need that capital in order to build so that you can deliver on the final value to your customers and service that customer so that you get paid. And so the more money that you're spending on delivering that value to the customer, then the more value you derive from the customer who then pay you because they've been served and they're happy. If you're raising capital so that you can do things other than paying for headcount, so you can start tests for other activities and whatnot, it may make sense, but you really want to think carefully about whether or not it is core to the fundamental business that you're building. I've definitely had students in entrepreneurship and founders come to me and say, hey, we want to raise money because that's just the natural next step. And we want to get our team motivated and excited to continue to build and feel a sense of progress. And I want to share that fundraising does not necessarily equate progress. In fact, if raising money is what you need to motivate your team, that's really not a good sign because you want a team that is excited to solve this problem and to refine the situation, especially in those very, very early days of thinking about a core founding team. So money really isn't a good morale booster, unless you, again, have it for very specific goals like scaling operations or hiring a 10x engineer or a 10x product person to build your product. So if you don't necessarily have a specific use case, you probably should not be raising at this point in time. You should be really digging into the core of your business to figure out, well, what is a core need? Every dollar you raise today is the most expensive money you will ever raise. You might ask, well, why is that? Because early on, for every single dollar you're raising, you're really giving up equity in your company in exchange. And so the earlier you are, the less your company is worth. And so the larger percentage of your company you have to give up in order to exchange for that same amount of cash of infusion into your company. If you really pass these two-step litmus tests, for every dollar you put in, you're getting out more than a dollar, and you have a specific use case for every dollar, you go ahead. But if that is not the case, then whatever company worth or valuation you have now, hopefully will always be worth less than what your business will be worth in the future. And so you always want to delay that fundraising process until you pass these two-step litmus tests. So now you might be wondering, well, okay, I pass this two-step litmus test, or I don't pass this two-step litmus test. What do I do next? So in the case that you don't pass this two-step litmus test, you should either be going back to the drawing board to say, well, what would I need to do in order for my business to generate more than a dollar for every dollar that I put in? Or you should be going back to the drawing board and asking yourself, what are the core needs so that I can get these core product developed so that I can be pumping out more money for every single cent or dollar that I put in. And if you do pass a two-step litmus test, then this is the right time to be thinking about how much to be fundraising. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you enjoyed this session, please hit the like button and subscribe for more startup insights. And of course, if you have more questions or you got your own startup stories to share, please drop it in the comments. We're excited to hear from you. And of course, we want to learn from how you're building, what kind of questions you might have for us so that we can better help answer your questions to help you build faster and better in your startup. In the meantime, happy holidays, and we'll catch you at the next one. Thank you so much.